a lot of these narcissists, they want you to know they're doing something evil or they're doing something bad to manipulate people. Like they can't hold it in. They have to say the quiet part out loud. You know what I'm saying? And whoever decides to read it and understand it, that's on them. But he said on March 15th, so when it comes to politics, especially within my lifetime, I can't really speak to, before that, but what I've experienced in my lifetime when it comes to politics and having, a genuine conversation, it is highly important that you know your sources, whatever information that you're taking in, and you're using that to frame your perspective or your opinion or your argument. It is really important that you know who your sources are. And one thing that Republicans are really good at doing is taking a brand or taking a topic and constructing the conversation around what they perceive to be true. Like, for example, critical race theory. Before Republicans really started using that as their hill to die on, no one and their mama knew what critical race theory was. I've never heard of the term before Republicans started using that as a talking point. So I had to look that up, figure it out, listen to other people who actually teach critical race theory, and I had to form my own understanding about it before I could have a conversation. But one thing that Mr. Ben Shapiro and Chris Rufo, if you don't know who Chris Rufo is, you're going to know now. But he says something very interesting on Twitter, and I'll probably just read it when we're having our video discussion. But he understands how to manipulate words. He knows how to manipulate people who are his audience, and he knows the sweet soft spot. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and watch this, a couple of clips of Ben Shapiro and Chris Rufo having a conversation about essentially lying to their fans.
You consider yourself? In which box do you put yourself? Because you're pretty obviously not hiding the ball when it comes to your own political persuasion and the things that you're hoping to do, but you're also uncovering a lot of news and breaking a lot of news and making a lot of news.
Yeah, I like to maintain a posture of strategic ambiguity, but I think that what I've come to a conclusion about is I try to work what excites me, what interests me, what I think is effective, and so I pick and choose from the variety of different backgrounds and disciplines and genres of work to put it together to do something quite simple. I'm a politically engaged writer, journalist, policy analyst. I want to put big victories up on the scoreboard, and I use journalistic techniques to achieve some of these things. And so it's a hybrid role that I've kind of created through my own experiments, drawing on my background as a documentary filmmaker, drawing on journalistic techniques, and then really by accident at first, translating it into the domain of activism and leadership and public policy. I've created this, I think, somewhat unique system, this somewhat unique approach that confounds my critics, and that just makes it all the more delicious. It makes it all the sweeter, that they can't quite put me in a box, and they don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, Chris, one of the things that you've uncovered that
so one, I can put you in a box. It's a evil, white supremacist, ignorant box. I mean, that's a pretty big box too, because you got a lot of friends in there, so it's easy to put you in the box. Trust me.
Really is fascinating is that you'll pick a story and people will immediately leap to the conclusion that the story is an outlier. And then you'll hit them with a bunch of other stories along the same lines. And they'll say, well, it's not really happening, but it's good that it is. Or eventually they end up at the position that the thing that you've been saying all along they've been trying to do is the thing they've actually been doing. How do you know when what you're covering is an individual story and when it's actually an important trend that needs to be explicated and brought into public view?
Well, I think, look, a lot of us know that some of these things, whether it's critical race theory or gender in schools or any other kind of issue, they are widespread. We know that intuitively. We know that through our experience. But what I've found as a general rule of thumb is that you need to do somewhere along the lines of 10 to 12 reported stories to establish a trend, to establish a body of evidence, to establish a kind of irrefutable pattern that then forces the left to engage in debate. And so whenever I'm designing a campaign or a reporting campaign or a policy campaign, that's pretty much the rule of thumb. I really try to do 10 to 12 stories over the course of 10 to 12 weeks. And I found that if you can be hitting these stories, exploding them into the media, establishing them as a narrative pattern, and you can do that for, a 3-month period, more or less, every week, getting on TV, getting on the radio, getting on podcasts, getting on social media.
Of course.
What you do is that you force the left to finally engage, because you start doing damage to their narratives, to damage to their own institutional power. You start activating conservative or Republican politicians on these issues. And only when you put them in a position of forced engagement will they actually engage, because they'll play the game, critical race theory doesn't exist. This is an outlier. It's just equity. What do you have against equity? All of these word games. And what I found is that you have to have shocking, salacious, incontrovertible evidence. And you have to do it at in a repeated manner at a large scale. And that's really how you...
All right, enough of him talking. Jesus Christ, bro. All right, so... one thing that he doesn't know, or I mean, he has to know because he tweeted this out and it's public information. But a lot of these narcissists, they want you to know they're doing something evil or they're doing something bad to manipulate people. Like they can't hold it in. They have to say the quiet part out loud. You know what I'm saying? And whoever decides to read it and understand it, that's on them. But he said on March 15th, Christopher Rufo said, "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all the various cultural insanities under that brand category." Wait, so at least for me reading that, he's using critical race theory, regardless if he understands it or likes it or not, but he's purposely creating a negative perception on it, making it toxic. Does he think it's already toxic? You wouldn't have to make something toxic if it's already toxic. If it's already negative, you don't have to make it negative. Do you see what I'm saying? He's telling you what he wants to do. So anytime these Republicans, these grifters want to say anything about critical race theory, especially Ben Shapiro in the Daily Wire, maybe some, random, Republican or conservative may not be as disingenuous. Maybe they just don't know what critical race theory is. But these individuals, they know what it is, but they're purposely giving false information and making it toxic. So they could just blame anything on critical race theory. Oh, it was a white supremacist shooting again at another Dollar General, critical race theory. Trans went to a Christian school to kill kids, critical race theory. Is it raining too much in your community? Critical race theory. You got a flat tire? Guess who it is? You got it. Critical race theory. It's crazy that I can read this to somebody and they're still going to come up with excuses. That simple.
Force the debate. And that's really how I think you change public opinion and ultimately deliver political victories.
So, Chris, let's talk a little bit about sort of the history that you've been uncovering You do so in your book, but also that you've been uncovering in a lot of your journalism. And the first question I want to start with there is, what do you think was sort of the tipping point for the United States? Was it back in the 1960s? Was it that it was kind of hiding under the surface and then broke out into the open in the 2010s, or was there?
And a lot of these clowns, and I'm starting to notice a pattern, because Larry Elder, Candace Owens, of course Ben Shabibo, they always want to reference the 1960s. Like it's a common thing, and now I'm starting to put it together. Like, why are they so obsessed with the 60s? What in particular happened in the 60s to where they want to put all the blame, or at least the source of the blame, on the 60s? If you don't know what it is, go ahead, look it up. It rhymes with Civil Rights Act. It rhymes with it. You know, if you can't figure that out, then that's your fault. But, you know, I'm speculating here. I don't have proof. But what else can they blame it on?
You know, a simultaneous shift in terms of policy and publicity that happened in the 2010s. In other words, was there sort of a lurking monster for 50 years that was gradually eating ground, and then finally we saw it in the 2010s? Or did it all sort of happen all at once?
Yeah, I think the lurking monster theory is probably the most accurate. And, you know, what I found in researching this book that traces the radical left's long march through the institutions from 1968 to 2020. Those are the great
1968.
bookends, the kind of historical frame. You know, what I found is that intellectually, the left's ideology was fully formed in 1968, 1969. They had the ideas, they had the theories, they had the basic coalitional patterns. They had even the very language that we see used today was already in use in the far left, radical journals, publications, and pamphlets by 1968, 1969. And so, in some sense, there are no new ideas on the left since that time. But what has changed is the placement of these ideas within institutions. And so from that period of 1968 to 2020, with the death of George Floyd, everyone taking the knee, everyone posting the black square for BLM.
Oh my God, everyone taking a knee. Oh my, that's such a large threat to American society. Oh my God, the black square, which a lot of people just did because they just wanted to kind of fit in, you know, get in just to fit in. But oh my God, the black square on Instagram was such a pivotal moment to American culture. Oh, Jesus Christ. Like we can't have another black square phenomenon. Like, oh my God, get out of here.
What you had is this long march process. And what I've tried to do is trace not just the ideas as abstractions or as a kind of empty vessels, but actually the flesh and blood march of these ideas through institutions. And so you see it in universities, you see it in K through 12 schools.
Here we go.
You see it in government bureaucracies, and then you see it even in Fortune 100 companies. And so it took that basic pattern over a very long period of time. And what I think the left has done very brilliantly since 1968, when their intellectual development it's essentially ceased, is that they've understood how to identify weak points.
Hey, and to clarify why it did cease is because assassinations, imprisonments, exiling individuals out of the United States. Angela Davis, or not Angela Davis, Asada Shakur. I mean, we're gonna get into that, but just take a listen.
Within institutions, identify choke points where ideologies can take hold, and then distribution mechanisms where they can have a minority of individuals within, say, a Fortune 100 company that are exerting power with great leverage from, you know, the middle register all the way to the CEO suite. And so that to me is really fascinating. And I think the right has done a poor job historically. We want to have a debate as if politics is an Oxford style exchange of ideas and the best ideas win. That's not actually how it works. That's not how politics plays out in the real world. And so that's what I've really hoped to do, is show conservatives how politics really works, how institutions really function. And then given that knowledge, we can start to turn things around.
We'll get to more with Chris in just 1 second. First, let's
see. Hopefully he gets into it. Oh yeah, right here. Let me just go ahead and find it. skip over this talking here.
Institutions. I wrote a book in the early 2000s talking about left-wing bias on college campuses. And I remember even then I was hit with a bunch of people on the right saying, what do we care what's happening on the college campuses? People will get off college campuses and then they'll go into the workforce and then they'll be converted back to sanity. When that happens, I remember arguing, I was still at UCLA at the time, I was in college. And I remember arguing, well, I'm not sure that that's the case because this is where bad ideas, start and then they are sort of infused throughout the culture. But obviously the takeover of the colleges started, as you're pointing out, in the late 60s, early 70s. Were colleges and universities sort of the first flowering of these ideas, the first seed beds for these ideas? And why were they, and if so, why were they such easy pickings for the left?
Well, they absolutely were, and you don't have to take my word for it. Some of the folks who were leading this movement, notably the German-American philosopher Herbert Marcuse and his student, the black communist radical Angela Davis, they gave a speech at UCLA in the late 1960s outlining their strategy, and they thought very clearly at the time that the universities were their initial revolutionary institutions. That's the kind of phrasing that they were using. And of course, universities have always been open.
Okay, Jesus Christ, shut up, bro. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself how he phrased that to your common snowflake that's going to scare them. Oh my God, black revolutionaries? Black radicals? Oh no, I gotta hide my pearls. I gotta hide my purse. You have to learn something. Every once in a while, you got to get out of your bubble and learn something. Let's go ahead and hear exactly what Angela Davis said during the 1969 at UCLA. And let's see, I want to hear her say something like, we need to brainwash these students so they can, I guess, take over the world and then essentially kill all white people, maybe. Like, I don't know. It needs to sound something like scary. You know what I'm saying? Like, to where this clown right here wants to write a whole entire book on how to, get rid of this radical thinking in college and in our everyday conversation. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
And the educational process on the other. I've been asked over and over again, how can you really be committed to the struggle for liberation and leave your ideas outside of the classroom, leave your political opinions outside of the classroom? Now, I maintain that political opinions should be brought into the classroom. They belong in the classroom. I think that education itself is inherently political. Its goal ought to be political. It ought to create human beings who possess a genuine concern for their fellow human beings and who will use the knowledge they acquire in order to conquer nature, but to conquer nature for the purpose of freeing man, of freeing man from enslaving necessities. But
Wait. Time out. I don't understand how that's a bad thing. She wants to essentially liberate individuals so when they get out into the real world, they're not enslaved by capital. They're not enslaved by government. I don't get it. Did I miss something? Okay, we need to switch this up here. All right. Real education, and you can go ahead and put this on a t-shirt before I do, okay? Real education leads to real liberation. Why do you want to indoctrinate kids to go into the workforce and just continue the old capitalist cycle? You get an education that's really geared for you to enter the workforce. Let's not kid ourselves here. They're not building up individuals to inspire and to chase whatever dream that they might have. No, it is geared to suit you up to get into the workforce. Trust me, I know. I was one of the million, okay? Get into the workforce, and then you work, paycheck, you work, paycheck, not a big paycheck, it's just enough for you to live, but then you work, and then you work, and then you work, and then you die. Who wants that? So I don't understand how Ben Shabibo and his evil friend Chris Rufo wants to sit here and pretend as if educated people are buying this. How are you going to take something that was essentially a surplus for everybody? Because like we always like to say, whatever helps black folks helps everybody. The civil rights movement did more than just help black folks. It helped women. It helped gay people. It helped disability people. Why are we targeting that movement that helped people? But of course, this is because he said for whatever reason, Republicans want to construct every conversation like it's a debate, but they don't have anything to debate. The only argument they could put their stakes on is cultural disagreements. Trans, critical race theory, woke now. Like you see how they transform these words into something that's wasn't a threat, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Trans people make up less than 1% of Americans, and we're having endless conversations about that. Critical race theory, you don't even know what that is. So leave it alone, because trust me, it is not worried about you. And being woke, that was black slang of essentially being aware, staying aware of social, cultural, and economic injustices, essentially. I mean, you could be woke to anything. You know what I'm saying? So once again, I don't understand why people take these individuals seriously, where they are telling you their evil plan, just like in the movies where the bad guy wants to tell the good guy their evil plan, and then all of a sudden the good guy gets out of captivity, and then they know the plan, and now they defeat the bad guy. They're telling us their plan, but yet they have a lot of minions who don't want to pick up a simple book or look up simple information to be like, oh, I'm not gonna fall for that. You know what I'm saying? But I can do all the preaching, I can do all the teaching, I can do all the explaining, I can show you all the proof in the world, but it's not going to change somebody's mind if they are comfortable being brainless sheep. I can lead a horse to the water, but I can't make that sucker drink. You see what I'm saying? So let me know if I'm reading into this wrong. Maybe I'm the bad guy. You know what I'm saying? Maybe critical race theory is turning kids gay. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But if you think I'm wrong, like always, let me know in the conversation, or let me know in the comments, and let's have that conversation.